welcome to the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. I'm your host, Erica Saccoccio, and we have a lively episode for you today. I gotta ask you a question though. What happens when your entire flight deck is all female, but no one has ever trained to fly together? Leadership, power, and collaboration don't disappear in women-led spaces, but they do get more complex. And today we are with leadership expert, ECE extraordinaire, the one and only Holly Elissa Bruno, and she's going to help us navigate the power dynamics of women, working with women. And there's a whole lot of us. So let's talk about it. Welcome to the show, Holly.
Erica, it's great to see you, and thanks for raising this topic because here's the truth. Look, we all have leadership issues that we are willing to talk about, and then we have leadership issues that are taboo, right? And one of the taboo issues is, aren't women supposed to get along with women? Aren't women supposed to respect women? Aren't women supposed to be the ones that can build partnerships? Yeah. I mean, that's a great expectation, but what about that one woman that has betrayed you? And every time, Erica and Cheryl, I ask that question, people say, oh my God, who is the one woman that you thought was going to be your BFF? She was really going to be your support. And then she used the information that you gave her against you, and it really could have seriously messed with your career. I'm not making this up myself. Dr. Phyllis Chesler, who wrote Women's Inhumanity to Women decades ago, did 20 years of research, and what she discovered is that it is always a paradox with women. I mean, I tell you, I went to women's college, and that was like over 60 years ago, and I still am friends. Those are like really good friends of mine. I trust those women. We have helped each other through all kinds of things. That's the best. Women working with women. But when I was the dean of faculty at a university campus, one of my staff members decided that she could further her own career at the expense of my career. And it hurt like hell. And I was angry as hell. So that's the paradox, I think, is it's all about trust. When women trust each other, we can have the most dynamic organizations. And people that are listening, you know this. If you guys trust each other, you have a powerful organization. Every child that comes in that door is seen and heard and loved. And if we don't trust each other, we've got all of this internecine, backstabbing, crazy stuff going on that makes us crazy, destroys trust, and also means what? Now, this is the essential thing. It means that children are learning how to be manipulators, how to be obnoxious, how to be all of the things that we don't want people to learn from us as leaders. Leadership's about integrity. Being a woman as a leader, as Cheryl can tell you, can really be a wonderful thing. And it can also be one of the most painful things going. Does that make sense, Erica?
Makes a lot of sense. I have a team of almost 40 women. I think we have maybe 3 or 4 gentlemen sprinkled in, and I've been doing this 27 years. So I have lived through all the different dynamics of working with a large group of women. And let's face it, early childhood education is made up probably 85% women. So those of us who are running these programs have to learn these dynamics. And I think that's why it's so important to openly talk about the power dynamics in women-led spaces.
You got it. And Eric, I want to add one other statistic, which most people don't know. Cheryl does, but it's powerful. The majority, you're right, the majority of us in early childhood are women. Thank God for all those wonderful men, and thank God for Mr. Rogers, great. And yet, guess what? What percentage of us in early childhood education, what percentage of us professionals are also trauma survivors? When I ask this question anecdotally, people say between 80 and 100%, and the research from Texas says a minimum of 58%. So now let's add in that dynamic to trust and also to women working with women. Especially because Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score, he said, look, the real war is at home. The problems that we get in terms of abuse, neglect, they're at home. They're from people that we're supposed to trust. And there's the relationship, here it is, my friends, between the mother and the daughter. I'm looking at the 3 of us. I know Cheryl was so close to her mother. I was close to my mother too, but my mother was mentally ill. It was my job to take care of her. And Erica, I don't know about you. But again, Dr. Phyllis Chesler said, look, that primary relationship between the mother and the daughter is going to affect how that daughter becomes a leader. Mm-hmm. So it's not a simple thing to say, Yep, I got my master's degree. Yep, I did that. I did this. I read all these books. I've been to all these conferences. I've done all these trainings. You can have the highest IQ in the world and not have the emotional intelligence to, I'll look at myself. I could have a very high IQ, but not have the EQ, the emotional intelligence, to examine my own life and say, yeah, that was the pattern that was set. I was about taking care of women, not being equal with women. Yeah. That's not a pattern I'm going to continue to do. That's going to burn me out, and it's not going to inspire staff. How many of the three of us have been looked at staff, have staff members looked at us and said, Mama, essentially, Mama, do this, Mama, help me with that. You know what? That's not going to encourage people to become their true selves. So we've got a lot. Bottom line here about women working with women, I need to look at myself first.
You know, it's funny that you bring that up. I was meeting with a staff member the other day, and she was talking about her feelings and feeling that somebody wasn't acknowledging her. And I said, honey, you need to clap for your own damn self. You have to clap for yourself. Don't, it's nice that, have accolades and have people, shower their praises on you. But at the end of the day, you have to have that internal yourself. You have to be able to clap for yourself, I guess, is what I hear you.
But if the message to trauma survivors, which the majority of us are, is, number one, don't tell anybody what's going on. Keep your silence. Keep the dirty laundry, quiet, enclosed. And number two, don't trust anybody. And number three, don't feel. Then what you're suggesting is absolutely pivotal, and yet that has to counter the message that says, we can't be happy and you can't be happy either. You've got to always work hard, and your work is never going to be done, and your worth is going to be measured by how productive you are. So how can a person applaud herself when she's still saying perfectionistly, or however that goes grammatically, she's still saying, I got to get this right, or I'm not good enough. I mean, I think, again, all three of us were exposed to that. I was definitely exposed to, you better get this right, or you're not worth anything. The A is not an A+. And it's taken me years of dedication to say, you know what? I get to applaud my perfectly imperfect self. Mm. I get to applaud that at 80 years old, I got all these wrinkles. That's good with me. Mm-hmm. I've got the turkey neck. That's good with me. I'm not even going to say turkey neck. I've got the skin of an 80-year-old woman. Good for me. You know what? Most trauma survivors, according to the adverse childhood experiences research, we don't think we're going to survive to get to be 80. Yeah. One of the fates of being a survivor is we don't live. We don't have long lives. We don't have good health. We don't have long lives. We lose our teeth. I mean, all of this research about ACEs is no fun. So I want to go back to what you're saying. You got it. You're saying a heartfelt truth. If I'm waiting for other people to applaud me, I'm going to wait and wait and wait. If I can turn around and look myself in the mirror and say, sweetheart, you've got strengths. And a lot of those strengths came from hard times. Mm-hmm. And the people you're working with are going through hard times. Even if they're smiling, they have been through hard times. So help, and here's the essence of what you need to lead. Help each person find her true strengths through her authentic self. I'm looking at Cheryl right now, and I've known Cheryl for decades. Cheryl was always a badass, but I've always been a badass. And what does that mean? That means that we define ourselves. And I think one of the key points for women who are leaders is, and Erica, you know this, we get to define ourselves. And if I hold myself to somebody else's standard of what a leader should be, I cannot be my true self. I wrote in a book years ago, if I'm playing a role, I cannot be my true self. When I'm powerful, when you're powerful, when the three of us are powerful, when our staff members are powerful, when we are being true to our own experience, which means the pain and the sorrow, the rage and the upset, as well as the clarity and the strength.
I think I could just sit here and just listen to Holly all day, every day, is you can take away from anyone what you're creating space for in your life to hear, right? And what you are ready to hear and what you're ready to work on. I'm a huge goal person. And every new year I set short-term goals, long-term goals. But now they've kind of morphed into more intentions, right? I am doing, it's a little guru-ish, but I'm doing the 13 days. I start on the solstice. I wrote 13 intentions that had to focus around my daughter and her family, myself, my growth, my health, and my business. And you roll them up into little, you cut them up, put them into little things, and then every night you burn one, and you set that one goes off to higher powers, whatever they are. And then the last night, the one that you have left is your work for the year. And that's what you focus your stuff on. It's something Holly said to me a while ago. She was writing a book, and I don't remember the title of it, but she was taking stories from the right. And so she came to me and she said, Cheryl, I want you to think about you being resilient. And there's two mirrors that I never see myself in. Is one is a leader, right? I know I am, but it's just something I kind of don't grasp fully. And then also being resilient, but I am. And I've come to terms with that. And I think we can't go through life just skating. It's not all rainbows and sparkles and unicorn glitter. But it's when we're thrown those obstacles, what do we do with them? We have to process them, and then we take that challenge, we learn from it, and we grow. It's not to say you're never going to have other challenges, but one of the things that I did with work with Holly I had her as a graduate professor, is with the infamous Gwen Morgan, is to do your shadow work. So we do our Myers-Briggs, and you get your initials, right? Your letters. If you flip those letters, that's your shadow. And that's where growth happens, right? I know my personality, I know what I bring to the table, I know all that, but I want to work on that internal growth. And with that, something came out, and it stays with me to this day, is bosses have employees and leaders have followers. And followers, you don't even have to ask them. You're like, oh, what's Cheryl doing right now? What's Holly doing right now? What's Erica doing right now? Count me in, I'm on board, right? You want me to do this? I'm in, right? Because they're leaders, and people want to kind of gravitate to that. But then you have other people that are like, oh, I don't want to do this today. I don't want to go. Why am I going to help that person? Why am I going to go to work? Those are bosses. And that's something I just truly never wanted to. I just don't want to be that. I don't want to ever be the reason why someone doesn't want to go to work in the morning.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Cheryl. Let me ask Holly, why can power feel especially complicated in predominantly, I can't even get the word out, female workplaces?
No, I hear you, honey. Power is so personal and so organic. It really comes from the inside out. And why is it difficult in female workplaces? Because we have very few models of authentic power. Look through history. What women do we have through history that have been able to speak and their voices are absolutely heard? I still can get angry about that. I love Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I bet you guys really appreciate her too. That woman was brilliant. And you know what happened to her? She was first in her law school class. I was not first in my law school class. She was. She did not get a job because she was a woman. Simone de Beauvoir said in 1945, I think, the year I was born, in the second sex, she said, women can't be authorities if we are not seen as authorities. Now, what the H are we going to do about that? And this has bothered me since I entered this profession in 1995 or 1993, we are seen as not worthy of being paid for doing a remarkable, sophisticated, rigorous leadership job. We're seen as like anybody can do that. My colleagues at Wheelock College, back in the day, it's now Boston University, but they used to say to me, if you've got the anatomy of a woman, you've got what it takes to be an early childhood professional. And I said, what are you talking about? But to get right to your question, we don't have a deep history of women respecting women. Do we have a president of the United States who's a woman? Other countries do, but what is it in particular about America that doesn't yet trust women's voices? And so that's the bleak part. The upbeat part. We all manage organizations which are, as you said, predominantly women. We get to set and work through and collaborate with, to co-create with the people we're with, environments where they can become their true selves. I have worked with childcare organizations where the children that went to school there, they come back and they want to be teachers there. Okay? Where the teachers want to become directors. Why? And here's the essence of it. Does the leader do two things? One, Does she see herself, know herself, and take care of herself? And for most leaders, the answer to that question is, I don't have time, no, I got to do that. No. Do I see myself and take care of myself? Do I hear myself? Do I let myself rest? Do I let myself be a failure at things? And admit it. I mean, who is the guy that wrote, It'll Come to Me? Fantastic quote. He said, the real courage is not achieving all of our goals. With all due respect to Cheryl, the real courage is appearing before the world imperfect and being okay with that. So the second thing, besides looking at myself and saying, how can I be an authentic leader? That means I'm growing. At age 79, 80 in 2 days, I'm growing. And here's the other essence. I have to, with my heart, soul, spirit, guts, brain, believe in the people that work for me. And when I believe in them, that means I get to know them, I hear them, and I see what is your talent. I have always seen in Cheryl that there is giftedness there that she doesn't even know about herself yet. She's getting it, okay? And Erica, I believe the same thing for you. It took me a long time to get that same thing for me. But if I honestly believe in you and you work with me, you're going to want to stay with me. Because I'm going to be the person that's going to be there cheering you every step of the way. And when you bypass me, I have people that bypass me and I love it. When you bypass me, I'm going, yes, yes. So Erica, I think that's it. I think if people walk into the workplace and they know this is a place where I as a woman or I as a person who's been seen as powerless for any other reason, I can have power here. My power will not be undermined, it will be supported, and it will be my true power. My true power. I know, I'll just give you one example. I knew a director that did this years ago. It was great. She might have been in Connecticut. She didn't have much money. What director does? But she gave people titles according to their gifts. And their gifts were things like the Princess of Parent Communication. I mean, this woman could help every parent feel special. She knew every parent's name from the get-go. The Princess of Parent Communication. How about the one that is the leader of defiant children? All of those kids with ODD, all of those kids that run, all those kids that climb, all those kids. She had a staff member that could connect with those children. And so there wasn't money associated with that, but there was respect. And the key thing we need in workplaces is love, trust, and respect. And nobody's going to believe I've got that for you if I don't have that for me.
Let me ask you this, because I feel like this happens a lot. How can women lead with confidence without feeling like they have to soften or apologize or shrink themselves?
I love that question.
I
was just watching Katharine Hepburn last night. And Katharine Hepburn doesn't apologize. She doesn't apologize. And when I'm at my best, what do I have to apologize for? It's a very different thing, self-handicapping myself. I think what you're talking about, what I'm hearing is we self-handicap ourselves. How many times 30, 40 years ago did I say, well, it's just a thought that I had? Ouch! Here's my thought. You know, oh my God, 1976 I graduated from law school. I became an assistant attorney general for the state of Maine. I was the legal advisor to this board. I was the only woman on the board. And the executive director of the board said, okay, so we've got a real problem, real dilemma. I can't figure it out. Let's figure out how we can do this. I waited because I knew to go first as a woman was not going to work. I waited. And what the men mainly said was, can't do it, not enough money. Blah, blah, complain. I waited. And then I said, and I had it all figured out like a lawyer. I had no apology. It was, here's the solution. Here are the pros to support the solution. Here are the cons. Here are the difficulties we need to overcome. Here is the likely cost. I mean, I had it laid out. And what happened to that? I didn't self-handicap myself at all. I said it right out there. Can you guys imagine what happened with that male board? Ain't nobody heard a thing. It was as if a tree dropped in the forest and the tree was never seen again. Well, we know trees hear each other, right? We know trees grieve each other. Well, anyway, I'm watching. 5 minutes later, George says, yeah, I got an idea. He's like scratching himself, I got an idea. And George says the same thing, the same effing thing that I said. And I watched. And all the guys were going, oh, man, George, slapping him on the back. Oh, George, that's great. That's exactly what we need to do. What did I do with that? Well, I was angry. I was pissed. But here's what a female leader needs to do. Acknowledge what is without letting go of what I want it to be. Keep my dream, regardless of the dream destroyers. So what did I do? I decided the ideas and getting the ideas across was more important than my getting the acknowledgement. And this is right to Erica, what you're saying. I needed to acknowledge myself and say, girl, you know the answer. They're not going to give you credit. Don't look to them for credit. So what I did is I buddied up with George. I'd take him to lunch before the board meetings. Hey, George, what are you thinking about this? Oh, that's pretty good, George. What have you thought about this? And George would be the one that lobbed in the good ideas over and over again. And I got moved up. Why? Because in that case, what were they looking for in a woman? A woman who could not offend men, but bring the best out of them. I'm not sure I like that at all. But one of the women I went to law school with is now the governor of Maine. She's running for Senate, Janet. She and I, first year of law school, did a dramatic reading from the Supreme Court case that said women can't be attorneys. Supreme Court of the United States, 19th century, said women can't be attorneys because our brains are not adequate. So back to Erica's question. Women are taught to self-handicap ourselves. Well, I only did this, or, oh, you think this is a great dress? Man, I just got it at Marshall's boutique, Or anybody could have done that. No. All of the trials, all the tribulations, and all of the pain that each one of us went through forged us to become who we are, and that's no small thing. Sorrow and pain shape beauty, or they shape self-destruction, or both. And I'm all about, I'm going to tell you the truth here. It's kind of crazy, but I'm 79. I look in the mirror and I say, that's a good-looking woman. Most of my life, I'd look in the mirror and I'd say, oh, what's that zit doing there? Or how come that nose is so big? Or what, Now I'm 79, I look in the mirror and I go, that's a good-looking woman. And I'm not saying good-looking because I don't have the wrinkles all over. I'm saying good-looking because I can look myself in the eye and say, every one of these horrible things that I have faced, whether it was, and I'm going to just tell the truth, physical abuse, incest as a child. Who overcomes that? Only way to overcome it is to face it. Only way to face it is to talk about it. So all of these things, I think, can shape. I do not like the phrase, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, because it is a hard and painful process. When Cheryl lost her mother, she lost one of her greatest supports ever. But what does Cheryl do with that? She grieves her mother. She talks about her mother. She remembers her mother. What do I do about my mother who was mentally ill? I grieve my mother. I credit my mother with what she had, what she gave me. And I honor the fact that it's okay for me to surpass her. One of the other things, this is a small point, Erica, but think about it. One of the challenges that most women have is that we are loyal to the restrictions on ourselves. We are more loyal to the restrictions on ourselves than we are to our promise. Does that make sense? It's a heartbreaker.
So this whole concept about apologizing is really interesting to me. I think, for one thing, it's just a pet peeve when someone's like, oh, I'm sorry, in every sentence is I think unnecessary apologies signal doubt when they're not framed appropriate, when it's not something that, like you are authentically apologizing for, right? And strong leadership requires presence, not permission, right? And when setting boundaries are not apology tokens, right? And when you phrase it with, sorry, I'd like to disagree. No, you just disagree. I'm not sorry about disagreeing, right? So I feel that as strong women grow and continue to grow, is you need to honor your time, your energy, your presence, and your emotional labor without apologizing for it. And stop the feeling of, I need to say I'm sorry. No, own it. You own it. When you walk in the room or whatever table that you're sitting at, own it, right? And stop, and don't start the sentence with, I'm sorry, but I'd like to disagree, or I'm sorry for the inconvenience, or, whatever it is you respect your time, your energy, and your presence at that table.
You're right, and yet it is so hard for a woman to say, I am a leader here. This is what I think. I mean, I love it when people are direct. That's freeing to me. And yet to get permission to enter the table. Most women have had to say, well, yeah, no. Let's look at the careers of women in America with Hillary Clinton. She did everything. She was superior at everything. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. And so she would have to say, I'm sorry, I didn't bake cookies. There was anger beneath that. I look for the day, and I think the three of us can do it. And people that are listening, I invite you to be true to yourself. When you believe something, be like Fred Rogers at Congress. When they were making fun of him, remember that? They were making, for the Appropriations Committee, making fun of Fred Rogers, a man in early childhood. What kind of a man is he? What did Fred Rogers do? He went right back to authenticity. And he started talking about how children need to grow by getting in touch with their feelings and feeling their feelings. And he looked right at those guys. Now, when a woman does that, we don't have to start by saying, look, I'm just a woman, but no, we can say the truth. This is the truth about leadership. I am the leader I am because I have faced the things I don't want to face about myself. I don't want to know that I'm afraid. I don't want to know that. But until I look at what I'm afraid of, the man who's going to take my job away arbitrarily, that's happened to me. When I'm motivated by fear, I am not my true self. I am simply a survivor. I am not a leader. And there's the challenge for most women. Fear is what we learn to cope with our whole lives. That can no longer be my definition. And that's a challenge for every leader in early childhood. We can fear the whole time we're not going to get enough money. Well, guess what? We're not. It's not funny, but we're not going to ever have enough money. We're not going to ever have enough staff. We're not going to ever have a lot of things. But those children that come every year deserve our best. And we deserve our best giving to them and growing with them. That's why I think we're in a sacred profession. Because we are each one of us called to be our best and true self. And anything less than that means I'm not the leader that I can be.
Yeah. So this has been an amazing conversation, especially right now with the way that early childhood is changing. Holly, what can people expect from your session on women dynamics working together? What can they expect from your session?
Okay, one thing is really clear. I'm going to invite each woman, each one of us, to look at herself and her own history and what from our history as a woman in power lifts us up and what are we still carrying on our shoulders that pulls us down. And we're going to talk about, to the extent that people feel safe to do it, in a safe environment, let's talk about what still pulls us down. I mean, for years, if I was afraid, I couldn't take the risks that I needed to take. You know, at some point I just got to say, stuff is going to happen. I can't control it, but I can do what I can do. So the first thing is I'm going to invite people to look at what it is that holds you back and ask yourself, is that something it's time to let go of? And if so, what are 3 steps I can take to let go of that? And then let's look at what the special gift. Look, Cheryl, Erica, you guys have special gifts. Covering those with a bushel basket is doing no one a service, especially the children and the people on your staff. I'm going to ask you to claim that, and I'm going to ask you to say it out loud. And guess what? The uplifting by your special strength, my special strength, for example, is keeping my sense of humor no matter how bad it is. How bad it is, I can laugh, okay? That strength will overcome the fact that I had a father that beat the whatever out of me and told me I was worth nothing, told me I was ugly. Those things can prevail, or I can say, wait a minute, that's part of my history. But no matter what happens, I don't lose my sense of humor. And I'm going to invite people to look at that, only to the extent that they feel safe. And when they feel safe, they can grow.
Well, that sounds like a very exciting and very impactful session that most folks are not going to want to miss. And I know you got to head out soon. And Cheryl and Holly are also presenting a session on emotional intelligence. So Cheryl, I'm going to give you a few seconds here. Talk to us a little bit about that. What is that going to look like? Why is it important? Let's talk a little bit about that.
I got no idea. It's just going to flow. No, I'm just kidding. So I think
right. She's right. In part, she's right. I mean, spontaneity is where the truth comes out.
Exactly. It's learning how to allow yourself to feel and how you can use those feelings for your own personal guidance on setting boundaries or clearly stating your needs, whether it's at work or in your personal or professional life. How you can, we tend to, this is a thing that happens in early childhood a lot, is a child will be playing, they fall down, and we clap. Yay, it's okay, get up. No, like the child fell, they're hurt, right? And we need to label that for them because, what if they fall off their bike tragically outside and they get really hurt? They're going to, are they sitting around looking for applause? Like, why is someone clapping when I get hurt, right? So I think it's owning your feelings, whether they're good, whether they're positive or challenging. I know there's negative feelings, but negative feelings can also be a source of growth, right? And to learn, you can't skip your feelings. You can't go around your feelings, right? To get to the other side, you have to go through it, right? I use like we talked about my mom, is my mom she was my mother, but then she became my patient and I was her caregiver. And so not shocking, go to therapy, but I had to grieve almost two separate ways. So one was I lost my mom and what that meant in my life. And then I also was realizing, like, I'm a caregiver by nature, regardless of age that we put around it. I had to grieve as a caregiver as well, right? So that took me by great surprise, right? And how each person grieves is very unique. And it's not something like, oh, I went to the cemetery or I lit a candle and, oh, I'm done grieving. It's all encompassing. And it really can change your life for many years to come, for forever, right? So, but you have to go through it. Like, you can't bury it. You can't go around it. There's some childhood song about a bear or something. But if you have a strong network and you're true to yourself, is you lean into that and you come out on the other side with grace.
I hear you, Cheryl, and I just want to comment on that because every emotion is a messenger. It conveys information I need to have. If I deny certain messages because they're not comfortable for me, I'm going to avoid learning. So, for example, COVID was a real deal breaker for me because I live alone. And one day I was feeling just so sad. And I have learned over the years to do the process of sitting with my feelings rather than running from them. So this messenger feeling came to me of real deep sadness. And I said, Holly Elissa, don't run from it. Don't go off and read a book. Don't call somebody. Don't do some work. Sit in your red leather recliner and let the grief come. And I did it, and I opened my heart. The messenger came, and it was so hard because I had denied it for years. My best friend, when I was a first grader, Claire Greenfield, died of polio. We were playing. Then I wanted to play with her the next day, and she couldn't play. And the next day she was in the hospital, and nobody would talk about what was going on. For all of those decades, and nobody talked about it. That was back in the 90s when people did not talk about death and dying. Nobody told me Claire died. I found it out. And as a little kid, I ran all the way down to the local church and stood on my tippy toes to see if Claire was in church so I could say goodbye. Here's what was going on in that red recliner. Those feelings that Cheryl's talking about that we don't want to have, I did not want to have the heartbreak, the crush of pain that came to me because I had denied what it was like to lose my best friend, Claire Greenfield. I wept and wept and wept for her, and I know the spiritual dynamic. When I grieve one deep loss, I'm grieving many others at the same time. So I grieved Claire, and as I was talking with Claire then, I said, Claire, I'm so sorry you missed so much of life. I realized, and here was the gift for facing my feelings, the harshest of feelings. I realized I had survivor's guilt. Why would I, the kid that nobody wanted, why would I survive when Claire was so beautiful and lovely and sweet, and she died? I shouldn't have lived. For years I've been carrying that. Then I wept even more. So Robert Frost nailed it when he said, the best way out is through. One of the principles of leadership that it took Harvard Business School forever to learn is that being emotionally intelligent means not running from my feelings, but being informed by my feelings. Stiff upper lip, bull. That stiff upper lip is going to give me, that's not it. And that's a hard thing, my friends, because women have been taught, I was taught, to be a feeling person, that's weak. If you have feelings, you're weak. What's wrong with you? I fought hard in all of my textbooks about emotional intelligence to say, this is wisdom. Wisdom isn't pretending that logic is the force of life. Wisdom is accepting that all of the stuff I've been through, Erica, all the stuff that you've been through, that can help me become my true self, or I can run from it. And everybody that works for you, Erica, knows you want that person to become her true self. And that's what keeps people working for you. But you can't do that unless you do that for yourself. And I know you have faced stuff that you didn't want to face, right? And you came through them out the other side. I think we're scared to death of being vulnerable. But my idea of strength is vulnerability.
I was going to say that is that I think when talking about emotional intelligence is you have to acknowledge your strengths, but also recognize your vulnerabilities. And when you're aware, awareness creates choice. And you can't manage or you can't help what you don't recognize, right? And really getting in tune with your emotional regulation, not emotional suppression. And learning how to, that they can benefit you, right? That you start to listen to understand, not listen to respond. And you're not doing that self-talk when someone's talking because you're thinking of the next thing that you want to say, right? Like, oh, I'm just going to say this, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say this. So it's and I think social media kind of inhibits that because we see something and then we just go quick to respond, right? Like really listen to understand the person and understand where they're coming from and what's building those emotions, and then recognize them and it's okay to set emotional boundaries, and you can still stay compassionate while you're doing that.
Erica, I have a question for you, sweetie. You're having this conference. You're inviting all these people that are going to be forceful speakers. You have done this for years. It's going to be 2026. What is your particular heart's desire for this upcoming conference so that you can make a difference?
I love connection. And I feel like, the 5 years of COVID, we really have lost that connection with each other, that real connection, that deep connection. And that's why when I did this conference, I said I want it to be national because like you, I get to go out and have the honor to speak and meet so many incredible educators. And the last 2 years have just been, I've just broken out of the walls of my centers and just really have been around so many amazing people that inspire me to be my best self. I mean, I'm very intrinsically motivated, but just being in that group of people who push you to be better, I want that for everybody. And so just coming together as educators and filling each other up, because we know the last 5 or 6 years have been so hard, and all the things that you guys are talking about. I also lost my mom, my sister, and I also were her caregiver, and it was a very long time. And I can remember COVID, I can remember exactly, just when you were talking about your red recliner, I can remember when I saw New York and they were putting people in body bags and putting them in refrigerated trucks. And I had just lost my mom 3 months prior, and I remember saying to myself, I would literally have been in jail if you thought you were going to keep me from my mom while she was passing. My sister and I were in the room with my mom. We stayed in the room for 3 days at the hospital. We were in the room when she passed. I actually was the one that found her when she had passed. We were in the room, and she did it at night because she always gave to us. She was always so kind and thoughtful of us, and we had said our goodbyes, and she did it at night the second that my sister closed her eyes. I feel that was intentional. So for me, I feel like I want that life of that. We remember, people being together and enjoying each other's company and just coming together as a community. I think, to me, there would be nothing greater than that. And so meeting educators from different parts of the country has been so cool. Seeing how people do things a little bit differently, exchanging ideas gets me jazzed up, get very excited about that. And then just building each other, And I agree with you, Holly. Cheryl has just started to tap her potential. She's just getting started. Cheryl, we talk about all that. I'm like, do that conference, write that book, do all the things, because I'm not leaving with anything in my gas tank. I am not. And that's as simple as that. So for me, for those that are listening, just come out and be surrounded by love, experience, wisdom. You know, it's been hard. We know it's been hard, and there's been trauma, but there's also a lot of good. There's still a lot of good in our field. And if I can magnify that in some way, if I can get on the stage and scream it into a microphone that we are still here, we are still a community, and we've got you, then that's what I'm going to do.
That's awesome.
I love that. Thank you. I'm going to say goodbye to you guys. It's my pleasure, and I look forward to seeing everybody at this conference.
Yes,
What's
Holly.
the date of the conference, honey?
May 7th, 8th, and 9th. You guys are on day 7, 7th and the 8th. So you're on the leadership tracks.
All right, hon. We are so ready.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you.
Holly.
God bless you guys. Love you both. See
Love
you
you both.
Bye,
then.
Holly. Thank
Happy
you.
birthday. Oh, she left.
All right, Cheryl. So let's
All right.
talk about the session that you are teaching.
Okay. What am I talking about again?
I don't know. You tell me. I can look it up.
All right,
Let's
just-
see. So many things. There's so many things going on. Let's see. Done. Let me check out day 1. You are talking about filling up your cup. Look, that couldn't have been a better segue. Filling up your cup and protecting your peace to find your joy and resilience refreshed. So tell us about it. Tell us a little
All right.
bit about why resilience.
So I want to start off on like Debbie Downer, but so people are going to go through this. So I think a lot of people can relate. I was very close to my mom. My dad passed away when I was young. My mom never remarried. She awkwardly dated, but that's a whole other segment. And that we're not going to talk about. So when I was also my mom's power of attorney and healthcare proxy, I had no idea what that meant. I just knew, okay, my sister and brother were not going to do it. I had to step up and had to do it. So when we were in the hospital, my mom had, taken a turn for the worse, and they had to revive her. And it took about 10, 15 minutes. They did a second time, took again 15 minutes. And just from what I know in my education background is when your brain is without oxygen for a certain amount of time, it does detrimental damage, right? So having that knowledge also helped guide me in making a really tough decision. So the doctor came in and he said, my mom didn't have a DNR or whatever. And so I said, listen, I talked to my brother and I said, Scott, we need to make a decision, right? This isn't fair to mom. We need to kind of talk about this. And I said, her quality of life, et cetera, et cetera. And he's like, nope, I want nothing to do with this decision. I'm not doing it. You need to do it. Now, you might want to bleep this out, but I was like, well, you need to kind of reach around and grab a set. And I said, because this really isn't fair, Scott. I had to make that decision. But I know I made the best decision possible. I had a conversation with the doctor. He agreed. My mom was 92 years old. She had some other medical things going on. Her quality of life was not going to be what she would want it to be if they kept doing these interventions. So through that and through some other challenges, in those trying times, people show their true colors. And you need to see those true colors for what they are, right? I expected certain people to be there for me, and they weren't. Other people surprised me, and they kind of came there and was like, let me grab a handle of Tito's. What do you need? Right. And so through that, I started to really work on, and Holly has also said, Cheryl, you're resilient, and I've kind of been, life is going to throw you challenges, right? You have to, for me, I have to process them. And what does this mean for me growth wise? Right. And I don't want to always say like, give me the worst case scenario, because then I can work back from that. If I know what's the worst thing that's going to happen, I can work back from that. But that's kind of giving it like all negative connotations. And I didn't want that. So last year, my focus was on accepting myself, being my true self, being true to myself. And where did that go, or what did it do? And I've talked about it before in different snippets, but I had finished my doctorate. I really wanted to have a party, right? And nobody was giving me a party. And I call it like the single tax. It's, you can go to everybody's wedding and bridal shower and have registries, but our society doesn't really put together a registry when you get your doctorate, right? Like go sign up for some notebooks or pens and pencils or a new iPad or something like that. So I was a little like, I had some friends take me out to dinner or whatever, but I wanted a party. And so then something kind of like you said, I said, you know what? If no one's going to celebrate me and my success, I'm doing it myself. So I love traveling in France. I rented a hotel in a castle and had one of those big soaking tubs and everything. And I had gone to a dinner and because I was by myself, all my pictures were selfies. So I asked the gentleman, the waiter, to take my picture. I'd gotten dressed up and a little jazzy or whatever. And he took my picture and I sent it to a couple of friends. And they said, "Wow, Cheryl, you look so relaxed. You look so happy." And I was thinking to myself, well, thanks, guys. And I look like shit before, right? Like, what? Like, you could have told me something. I would have bought new bronzer or something. But it was the realization that I was just holding in loss, grief, stress. I was part of something semi-professionally that I was struggling with personally, whether or not I actually fit in here, if this was serving my growth and supporting my growth. And so I needed to make some choices, some new choices, right? And I found the Life is Good, the Playmaker Project through Life is Good. I went to a 1-day retreat and I instantly felt connected, right? So I decided to become a playmaker. So I took their modules. I'm finishing up. I went to the 2-day retreat. And when I was there, I felt seen and I felt heard. And there's power in that, right? And not power like a control freak, or anything like that, but it's more just becoming self-aware. And and people joke on this, I've never lacked confidence. I'm a very confident person. Mm-hmm. But being more self-compassion as a skill, right? So speaking to myself as I would, also listening to myself, as I would speaking to a dear friend when they come to you, right? Kind of taking your own advice. Mm-hmm. Acknowledging effort, not just outcomes. So we can have a goal or a journey, but the path could change. And where you end up might not be where you thought you were going to end up, but it's the journey that guides you and gives you those experiences. I've kind of released being perfect. It's not always going to be perfect. Don't set unrealistic expectations. Expectations are the root of all heartache. Treat myself with more kindness. Really look at fostering emotionally safe spaces for relationships. Encourage dialogue with not fear or judgment. Know when to walk away from something. You don't have to make a grand gesture of it. You don't have to say, I'm going to block you on every single thing on social media, lose my phone number, whatever. No response is a response. And not everything deserves a response. You get to choose how and when you're going to respond to whatever it is, kind of what it is. And then I think know what your values are and align your decisions with your values, not just your emotions. But use your emotions to kind of inform those decisions. Maybe that talks in a circle, and be consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny as I hear you tell that story and I'm nodding my head and smiling because literally you could have just inserted my name. I feel like that was me 2 years ago. And the amount of growth and change and the way that I move and operate truly has just, I don't even recognize the old Erica. I really don't. That person is long gone. So sometimes it's a trauma that happens. Sometimes it's not a trauma. Sometimes it's the greatest joy that ever happened to you. But there's something that happens to you that has this major shift in the way that you operate. And, resilience definitely comes from, unfortunately, from the trauma side, which we faced are very similar traumas.
There's a really good poem. It's called Everyone Comes Into Your Life for a Reason, a Season, or a Lifetime. And it's your
lesson.
A lesson. It's your choice to put that person in that bucket, right? So when you have to walk away from something or someone that it's not serving you anymore, there was a reason in that, right? And you learned from it, or hopefully you learned from it. I keep going back to the boundaries, but I feel that people start to work on boundaries, but then they feel the need to explain their boundaries. Like, I've set this boundary because of this. No, your boundaries don't need an explanation. Don't over-explain it.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that we had conditioned folks around us on the way that they treat us, and then you act different, and they don't know what to do with that. And I think the boundaries part was one of those things for me. Before I would not necessarily say no, and I would take on more things than I should have. And now I'm like, I'm not doing it either.
Nope.
Whatever happens, happens. But I felt like this. My sister used to joke with me and be like, "Oh, you always throwing your superwoman cape, right?" I don't do that anymore. I don't do it anymore. I'll solve the things that I can, that I want to, that make sense for me. But if not, it's not my baggage to carry, and so
I think
you have
sometimes
to
too,
let that go.
what kind of gets misconstrued is confidence with cockiness. And I think when there's a very strong, powered, a leader that's a woman, and some people say, oh, well, look how cocky she is. No, confidence comes from that inner security and knowing who you are. Cockiness is an external performance.
Yeah.
Confidence says, I know who I am and what I bring to the table. Cockiness is, I need you to know who I am.
Yeah.
And I want you to know what I need to bring to the table. I think it's when we think of like someone that we, might label as cockiness or whatever, it can often be rooted in self-protection. Like it's that turtle with the tough outer shell.
Of course, yeah.
That, like I need to protect myself. But someone that's confident can take, you're rooted in self-trust, and you know yourself, you know your limits. You don't need constant validation or approval for what you're doing. You don't ask someone, do I look good in this? You own it. Right? You stand in that mirror.
Yes, baby. Yes.
Yes, right. 2 snaps and a smile and I'm out the door, right? You let your work and your integrity and your consistency speak for yourself, right? And don't diminish your self-worth or where you are in your life or how you got there, right? You put in the work and you're there, right? So it's been very interesting, because if you asked me 5 years ago or 6 years ago, would I see myself kind of venturing into this land, right? And I went to it was a leadership symposium at Harvard, Schweitzer, right? And I contacted my nephew and I said, Keith, you know about this stuff. Like when I sit down to eat, how do I go? Outside in with the silverware, inside out? Like I'm gonna be with Harvard people, right? So I was joking. I was all, put on the best. I went there. I got my picture taken in front of the sign, and there was a couple of colleagues that was there. Dr. Lippitt was there. Jack Scheinkoff was there. And I'm like, oh, like I've cited these people in my work. Like I was like and so I went up and I talked to them, and they were like, oh, welcome. Thank you for coming to be with us. And I'm like, with you? No, I'm here. Right. And they're like, no, but you're here because you're one of us. And I'm like, no. Really? Right. And for one thing, I just honestly I've been so fortunate to meet so many wonderful people in my network that I'm so grateful for, is because they're there to also kick me when I need it, is that I hope I never lose that sense of humbleness or that wonder, like, like, hey, I'm in the room, like it's still amazes me that, I put in hard work and I earned a seat at the table. But it's still like kind of wows me.
Yeah. All right, Cheryl. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us on the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. Again, folks, if you want to come join this conversation, you want to connect with amazing educators like Cheryl and Holly, please come on out. You get your tickets for the Early Childhood Empowerment Conference. The link is below in the show notes. And as always, thanks for tuning in and have a great day.